The way I structure my classes, we start out very simply and everything builds to the next step. So, the three most important things to me, I think every dog should have a solid stay, a solid recall, and a solid loose leash walking. But we start with a sit. Welcome to this episode of Dog Leads. I'm Steve Bishop, certified dog trainer. Thank you for joining me today. So before we start, I wanted to invite you to a presentation I'll be giving, A Stroll in the Dog Park. So I'll be discussing appropriate behavior and expectations at your local dog park, and I'll leave a link to that and all the presentations I have coming up in the description. So first I wanted to talk a little bit about the podcast. I thought several times about doing a vlog, and you can see some of those on my YouTube page. I wasn't really happy with the way they turned out, and I didn't enjoy doing them. So when I started the podcast, I wasn't sure how long I'd be doing this, if I wanted to continue it, but they seem to be going well, and I'd like a few more listeners, but for the time being, I plan to continue. The videos are getting a lot more watches than the podcast, so I'm putting some effort into making these look a little more professional. I had some time this week. We had a rain day, and so I took the day off and used the opportunity to kind of spruce up my area here, just making it look a little nicer, a little more inviting. I feel so professional. Also, I mentioned last week I'm trying a new editor, and kind of last week I had a few problems this week, so this is the second time I'm recording this. I forgot to switch the mic over to the appropriate input. So yeah, I got a nice video of me just sitting here moving my mouth. There's still a little bit of tweaking to be done, me getting used to all the new technology. So thank you for your patience. And I know some of the videos don't look the greatest, but my main focus is on the podcast itself, or the audio. So hopefully, even though the videos aren't great, the earlier ones, hopefully you still find the information useful and you enjoy at least listening to me speaking. I'm also going to try a slight format change. My idea is the very first week of the month, I'm going to do a training tip. That's probably what I get asked to do the most, is training. The second or third week, I'm going to try and have an interview. I'm still trying to work out scheduling and get everything lined up, and I've got several people that I'm talking to. Next week, I'm going to be talking to Melody from Unchained Melodies. I've known her for years, and I'm really excited about it. I always enjoy conversations with her. Like episode 27 was an interview with my daughter as kind of a 6-month celebration. Episode 29 was Veronica from Little Paws Chihuahua Rescue. So obviously those are a little bit longer than the 15 minutes I try and keep the episodes. But like I said, week 2 or week 3, we'll be doing the interview, and then the remainder of the month, we're going to talk about any topic that we feel like. If you have a question, I try to address all of those. If it's just a topic that I find interesting or something sparks my interest during the week, I will cover those. It could be about anything. Usually you probably notice they lean towards kind of the sciencey developmental behavior stuff, but that's kind of where I'm at. I like to know the whys behind the stuff that we're talking about. So if you would like to suggest a topic, if you have any questions, if you'd like to hear me delve into something a little bit deeper that I've already talked about, let me know. You can leave a comment here, or you can always email me at bishopsgatetraining@gmail.com. So enough about all of that. Let's get into the topic. So there's a couple of things I always like to go over when we start a new behavior. The first thing is we have to be able to get the dog's attention before we can ask them to do something else. And I talked about that in episode 28, where I talk about name recognition and check-ins. One of the things that I didn't really go into in that episode was we don't want to have the dog expect us to say their name and then the cue. So like my dog, Malcolm sit, Malcolm down, Malcolm come, Malcolm stay, whatever it happens to be. If they keep hearing their name over and over again, it's not going to mean anything to them by itself. So when we use the dog's name to get their attention, it's kind of like when you see, I don't know, somebody across parking lot at the store or whatever, and you want to get their attention. then you can say, "Hey, Malcolm," and we want the dog to respond, or the person in this scenario. But once we have the dog's attention, we don't have to keep repeating their name over and over again, or it's just not going to mean anything to them anymore. So go back and check out the name recognition episode, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. Now I want to talk about the sit. So this is a really basic behavior. Most people come to class with their dog able to sit somewhat on cue, and some of them it's very reliable. Most of them it's like, kinda. The reason for that is every dog's going to sit for whatever reason. They're bored, they're waiting for you to give them something to do, they're waiting for dinner or whatever. So what happens is that behavior is captured. So what that means is we wait for the behavior to happen, and then we put a word with it, and the dog starts to learn, oh, that word means I should do this behavior. How that applies here, if you have something that's working, go ahead and stick with it. I'm not one of these people that says, well, this is the way I teach it and this is the way you have to do it and that's the only way and that's the best way. My way of thinking is every dog's a little bit different and they learn a little bit different. And there are some things that the dog is going to excel at, pick up really quickly, and there's some things going to take a little bit more time, a little bit more work. It's just the way their brain is wired or whatever reason. What I teach works about 80% of the time. But again, each dog learns a little bit differently. So if this isn't working for you, don't be afraid to try something else or try a little bit different. So for example, I use a hand gesture, and I'll describe this in just a minute, but the hand comes up and then back. My brother, he would just hold his finger up. Okay, so use whatever's working. The only rule that I do have is you are not allowed to touch your dog. So don't want to see pushing the butt down onto the floor to get that behavior. If you're working at a distance, if you cannot get to your dog, you need them to stop and sit where they are for whatever reason. You can't say, oh, sit, and then run, 100 meters or sorry, I was listening to a British podcast earlier. You can't run 100 yards, touch their butt, and then come back and, okay, stay or whatever. Plus, if they figure it out for themselves, without that physical manipulation, they're going to have that behavior a lot better. Once the dog does the behavior, then lots of treats, lots of praise, lots of pets, etc. But we don't want to physically manipulate the dog into position. So the way I like to teach the sit is going to use a B hand. What that is, you just kind of place the treat more or less in the palm of your hand, fold your thumb over it, and then you're going to put that treat right up against their nose if you need to. Then the hand comes up. As it comes up, the dog's head moves up, and their back is kind of like a seesaw. So as the head comes up, the tail end goes down. Once they're in that position, you're going to go straight over their back. So the idea is as they follow the treat, looking up, their butt's going to hit the floor. And then as they get the hang of it, and I talk about generalizing in another episode also, but as they get the hang of it, then you can get further and further away and make those behaviors or the gestures, the physical cue, more and more subtle. The best trained dog I ever had, I could hold my hand at about waist level and curl my fingers, and he would sit. He knew that meant sit, but it started out with that treat right up against the nose, kind of luring him into position. The other thing I wanted to talk about was a down. And like I said earlier, what I teach works about 80% of the time. This probably works about 60% of the time. And I notice particularly with small dogs, they don't like going into that down position. I think it has to do with the fact that they're already so small. It can be a little intimidating to get even lower. So it takes a little bit more practice to do that. So how we teach the down, I use that B hand again with the palm down, and as close to the nose as you can get, the hand comes straight down towards the floor. And the idea is as the dog tries to get under your hand to get to that treat, they're going to go into that down position, and then the back end follow. They go into that sphinx down. Then you want to drag your hand out if you need to get them to kind of stretch out into that position. The other option is something I've found works pretty regular is if you take that treat and kind of push it in towards their chest. You don't want to push their chest, but you're just moving your hand towards it. The idea there is as a dog looks down and tries to get to that treat, they fold up. You remember the old 70s lawn chairs that just kind of collapse, folded down. It's kind of the same thing with the dog. They just fold into that down position, that nice sphinx position. So those are a couple of ways. If you're having trouble with the sit or the down, you can try different speeds, how close you are to the dog with the treat, anything you can think of, as long as everybody's comfortable and everybody's having a good time. So I think we'll leave it there for today. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. If you really enjoyed it, consider sharing it. If you have any questions or would like to hear me cover a topic, you can email me at bishopsgatetraining@gmail.com, and we will see you next week.